There I am. Hey guys, how is everybody doing? It is Wednesday, and every Wednesday, you know how it goes with me. I am talking to you guys, whether it be live, whether it be all my videos. I love talking about real estate in the area, about real estate. I just think this is great, and I love the area a lot, and so I like talking about the area. And so that leads me to tonight, which was I really thought that it would be helpful for people that are relocating to the area recently or in the next few months. As far as some surprises that I keep running into that people have been telling me about, that I'm actually, as I listen to people talk, what types of things that seem to be the kind of the surprises, whether it be looking at houses, what things that to people are people surprised by, or just things about the area that are surprising. And I mentioned some of these in little ways before, but I do think that kind of condensing these into a kind of a bite-sized chunk, if you will, before you move would be helpful. And some of this stuff is, I mean, you know how it is when you move to a different area or you just even move to a different house, you pick up on things. But sometimes the things you pick up on, the things that kind of make an area feel a certain way or the vibe of a house a certain way, you don't really notice all those details until you get into the house or into the area and you start kind of melding yourself into the house or the area. And so my thinking is I want to be able to kind of give you those little details, those nuances now, so that once you get here, it kind of helps you kind of merge into what the area or the house feels like, if that makes sense. Because there are some common themes that you'll find in houses or the area. Excuse me. Excuse me. So, what I want to do is talk about some of those things, and then also throw out a couple of neighborhoods that I have heard or I've talked about and run into recently that I think are worth mentioning or talking about now. That I've seen hit the market. Some houses hit the market, and they don't hit the market very much. But I think that if you want certain types of houses, I think they would be worth that areas would be worth considering. So, and I say Virginia Beach area, I'm talking about through Williamsburg, but really a lot of it is Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, Norfolk. I love Williamsburg a lot. I talk about that a lot too. But anyway, not sure what's going on with my voice. I apologize. But first, we're going to talk about those things that are surprises. Well, actually, I'm going to drop this below. Where are you watching from? If you're watching from a different area, let me know. I would love to know where you're watching from. I've talked to people recently from the West Coast, the East Coast, the Midwest, different countries. That's pretty common, especially because in this area, people relocate from different areas because of the military. So feel free to drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. So we're going to talk about those things that are surprises. And so number one, the first thing that I find is there's a category of things that are in houses themselves. And these things can depend, the amount of times you see these things can be affected based on what age or how old the houses are that you're looking at. One is going to be weird swirly walls. Okay, what do I mean by that? So I'm going to try and find an example online, but a lot of times when people come to the area, they are surprised by the type of drywall that we see in the area. And so the reason I mention this is because it can be a little bit off-putting. This is a great example right here. So I'm going to share my screen with you. And people often have an expectation. They don't really think about what the walls look like when it's time to buy the house. And I think the reason is because it's like you just live in what you live in, right? And you don't think about it. Well, number one is like you see here, knockdown texture is pretty common. And what that is this, it's like this, it has imperfections and it's kind of designed for you to not be able to tell. Oh, actually, let me share. There we go. It's designed for you to not really be able to tell where the imperfections are, and it's easier to put drywall up because of that. So you see a lot of this type of drywall, but the swirly walls I'm talking about is right here. This is okay. Nope. You're like, where is it, Sam? This one. This is all over the place. This swirly wall. And so when you walk through houses that have this, people are often like, what is this? Well, the reason I mention this is because it's the walls are significant enough. They're defined enough or pronounced enough to where if you don't know it's coming, you're kind of getting shocked by the size of, or the the aesthetic in the house, and it kind of feels like it's kind of crowding in on you. And so what I do is when I'm helping people relocate, as far as like video, like I'm taking a video of a house, I will zoom in on the walls because I know that the different textures and the look of a wall can definitely make a house feel a certain way. And so keep that in mind when you're relocating. If you do factor that as well, look at your own walls, look what those look like, and know that it might not look that way when you come to this area. Could be the knockdown drywall, could be this swirly walls, and a lot of times it's the swirly walls. So I've heard some people just don't like those. So that's one. Number one, the next one is going to be frogs. And I mentioned frogs before in other videos, but finished rooms over the garage are a pretty common thing here in this area. When I say finished rooms over the garage, I'm talking about, I'm going to show you an example of this too, is a weird shaped room, but it's, and I want to show you an example here. It's like a really weird picture. So check this out. We're going to do this right here. Look at this. So this is a really weird example of a room over the garage, but if you notice, it's very common that the roofs or ceilings in rooms over the garage shape, or the shape of the ceiling height or the roof pitch itself. And so a lot of times what you'll find, this is finished space. This is considered finished space. The problem, though, is that people think, well, this is finished space. I'm thinking I'm going to be walking into a square room, like a square bedroom. Well, this can be considered a bedroom. It might not look like it because it's like, well, is there a closet? Sometimes there isn't, but you can still argue that it's a closet or it's a bedroom. So if you see, and I'm talking about the exterior of a house, and let's talk about 19. This is a good example right here. See this house, or the window above the garage right here? This is not an exact example, but it's a good example. When you see that window over the garage, there's a decent chance there's a frog there. And so if you see, for example, on Zillow, you look, or wherever you look on for houses, 4 bedrooms or 5 bedrooms, and it has that window, there's a good chance that one of those bedrooms is going to be a frog. And if you're picturing in your mind, I want 4 traditional size bedrooms, and one of them is a frog, you're like, I don't know if I can deal with that, because let's say you've got 3 kids. Well, who's going to have the frog bedroom? Maybe you need to use that room as a bedroom, and it's going to be like this big fight as to who gets it, because it's usually the biggest of all the bedrooms, but it also has the weirdest, the most common. It's like a common space because it often connects to the downstairs. So it usually is best served as like a kid's playroom or like an office. But if you're expecting that extra bedroom, that might be the bedroom. And it's like, I don't know if I can deal with this. So keep that in mind when you're looking at houses in this area, because there are a lot of frogs in this area. So that's number 2. Then you'll find out a lot of converted garages. There are so many converted garages in this area, and it can be a lot of different price ranges too. And the reason is because I think, well, there's multiple reasons, but I think that one of them is because the price to add a room can be way more expensive than just converting the garage. And the reason that people do this is because the temperature and the climate here doesn't necessarily force people to use the garages to park their cars in. So a lot of people that come from the north, they talk to me and say, hey, I really want a 1-car, 2-car, 3-car garage. Because, hey, I want to put my cars in there. And it could be even the Midwest, like Nebraska, Ohio, further out, even going towards the West Coast sometimes. They want those garages to park their cars in. Well, when the reality is, people often don't do that here. And so you'll find a lot more converted garages. And it's like, well, why do people do that? Throws off the vibe. Well, it kind of does. You can tell when a garage is converted. It can look kind of just weird and different, but you find a lot of houses that have those converted garages. So in my mind, I'm not saying don't care about garages. I'm just saying that you might find that the reason that you want a garage to begin with might not really translate to this area, because you might not find that you might need to park your car in a garage if it's because of the elements, trying to keep the car out of the extreme elements. Now, you find that there are still extreme elements here, but it's like not as significant as a place that has a lot of snow, or really close to the beach, like the Salt. That's not as big of a deal, actually, believe it or not, off the coast, or even like Florida, that kind of thing. So, or like Virginia, Washington, D.C. Like if I buy a car, I watch for if there's salt in the undercarriage, that kind of thing. But in this area south, you don't really get that. So the climates are not as extreme in this area. Now, the exterior dynamics, like neighborhood stuff. What is one thing I focus on when it comes to some people that are surprised by what's around the house? Well, sidewalks is a common thing that is not as big of a thing. Like you don't see as many sidewalks in Virginia Beach or even Chesapeake, or even mainly the most of the area. You will see it, and you'll see that, especially in the 90s up to new construction. But the reality, though, is that it's not as common as you might think. And similar to the converted garage dynamic, people are like, well, I don't want to buy a house without a garage. Well, some people also think, well, I don't want a neighborhood without a sidewalk. Okay, well, we live in a neighborhood without a sidewalk. Okay. So do we care? I grew up in a neighborhood without sidewalks. The answer to me is mostly no. I like to bike. Do I care if there are sidewalks near my neighborhood and with biking? I don't. And part of that is because a lot of the neighborhoods here are pretty quiet, and it's a net positive to have a sidewalk, but it's not a deal breaker for me and a lot of people that lived here for a long time. So keep that in mind. The other thing is, the sidewalks around the larger metropolis areas, or say suburb areas, you can ride your bike on those sidewalks unless you're in, for example, right near the ocean front or in town center Virginia Beach. Most of the rest of Virginia Beach, you can actually ride on the sidewalk. People think you can't, but actually I looked in the city guidelines, you can. So that's a side thing. If you do bike, just keep that in mind. Check it out too if you want. But as far as the sidewalks in the neighborhoods, a lot of these neighborhoods are pretty quiet, and especially ones that have cul-de-sacs, it's not as big of a deal. And you'll find that some of these are more narrow, and they don't have sidewalks, and they're narrow, which can be kind of unnerving. Again, is it the end of the world? It depends on what kind of house you like, honestly. If you want a 60s house, 50s house, like, for example, in a lot of the north parts of Virginia Beach, or even the south central parts of Chesapeake near Greenbrier, like those 60s types of houses, like Wilson Heights, good example, up near like Battlefield Boulevard. I'm throwing out random names, I'm sorry. But if you are in those places, you might not find that as many sidewalks, but you'll find that these streets are a bit wider. So you might not need it as much. So like in my neighborhood, we live in Virginia Beach. A lot of people walk their dogs, ride their bikes, walk in the street. We do. We've got a baby and we walk our baby in the street. Like, well, that sounds really crazy. It actually isn't as crazy as it might seem. So keep that in mind when you're coming to the area, that just be prepared. You might not get the sidewalk that you might have gotten in maybe a planned subdivision in a city that you might be coming from, so that's another thing. Next is going to be flood insurance. Okay. So as we're leaving the entire, after out of the house, out of the neighborhood, okay, is flood insurance a thing? Okay. Well, what I found is that people do get concerned about flood insurance, which is a real, or about flooding, which I'm not saying don't care about it by any stretch. Do your research and see if you need flood insurance and if it's something you want for your house. I totally understand why you'd want to get it. I'm not saying this is not an appeal to not flood insurance. What I'm saying is that people, I think, are surprised by how little flooding happens relative to what the expectation is, because I think people often watch the news and they see, okay, well, flooding means this. Flooding, there's a picture of what flooding looks like, and that's what I'm going to be coming into when I get to Virginia Beach or Norfolk. Well, now there are some flooding spots that can be problematic, but what I'm saying is that it is drastically not, I think, what people's pictures in their minds are is not really what you find here as much. There are some pockets, but especially Virginia Beach, I mean, there really aren't that many spots that are really drastically of a concern. And when there are concerns, it's more of, usually it's street flooding. There are some spots that you'll find that are some actual house flooding issues, but not as many. And if you have any questions, you can ask me about specific spots and I can give you past experiences. But same with Chesapeake, you'll find some spots in like Bell's Mill, some south central Chesapeake areas that have some issues. But again, drastically not as big of a deal or widespread as people might think. And people are surprised by that. Another thing that people are surprised by is when it's time to buy a house. Virginia is what's considered a buyer beware state. And Steve Kwiatkowski, is that the right way to pronounce it? from Virginia, West Virginia. Cool. Planning and trying to move down to Virginia Beach or Williamsburg. Great. I love both of those cities or counties, if you will. The converted garages blows my mind. Yeah. If I had not lived here my whole life, I would not be as used to it. And it's one of those things that I'm just used to now. But I mean, happens a lot. And then honestly, like my parents did it too. Honestly, like you have to make sure the brick matches or the vinyl siding matches, or else it looks real tacky. Personally, Jeremy. Hey, Jeremy, I love your content. Hey, awesome night. Good to see you, Jeremy. That's awesome. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you very much. So, I'll go back to that. So, what was I going back to? Oh yeah. So this area is a buyer beware state, the state of Virginia. Okay. What does that mean? It means that you need to do your due diligence when it comes to buying any house, because a lot of people that come from different states will ask me, hey, do the sellers have a disclosure as to things wrong with the house, known issues? And the answer is almost 100% zero. There is nothing like that. There is a general seller disclosure that you find when you make an offer. That is part of the process, but it's not like what you might expect. It's not like, oh, seller knows that this is the problem, this is the problem, this is the problem. That really is not a thing in Virginia Beach or in Virginia. So that's something I would keep in mind if you are moving here and you may have past experiences as a seller or buyer with those disclosures. You might see, like, so for example, if you get involved with a seller that has a relocation company that is involved with their move, you might see more detailed disclosures with them, and maybe specific foreclosure situations. But again, it's not really that common. And so just be prepared to not get that. Cody, hey Cody, I get this out to you. I got to talk to you in about 20 minutes, and I will give you some good news. I think you'll like this news. Thank you also for the vote of confidence. Appreciate that. But yeah, very cool, Cody. Thank you. And I'll give you some. I'll reach back to you. Give me about 20 minutes because we're going to be wrapping up here in about 15 minutes. And I'm going to be helping my wife with our baby. And baby life is a new kind of life. And if you all have kids, you know what I'm talking about. And I'll be honest with you, I did not expect it's a thing. And this is our first. And anybody that talks about kids having stuff, hey, got kids. I get it now. I get it. I get it. I get it. So anyway, now, so does that all make sense? I think it is important to note about the disclosure thing, because I do think that comes up a lot. Inspections do matter here. And reality too is it's hard to really know everything about a house before you get into it. And that's kind of the reality of it here. That's why I say, just be aware of those other stuff, like the things like, if you're getting a house built in the 60s, you might have some plumbing stuff, some cast iron, drain lines, that kind of stuff. Just know that this based on time periods, and having some conversations with people now about, polybutylene pipe. That's enough of a thing to where, again, is it a drastic death sentence to a house? No, but it's at least worth knowing those types of things. And again, you're not going to know if a house has either flooded, not necessarily, or if a house has specific issues. It's definitely important to know that you're not going to get that much information necessarily from the sellers. They might give you stuff. They might. It doesn't hurt to ask, but you don't expect a whole lot. Right now, I'm sort of out of assets in West Virginia. Okay, cool. Been looking there. Awesome. Be calling you. Thank you very much when I'm ready to buy something. Very nice. Great channel. Thank you very much. I love doing this. I love it. It is a lot of work. Not as much as having a baby, I'll be honest with you, but it's different work, right? I love doing this, though. It's been a lot of fun. It will be 6 years in 2 months. I cannot believe it. So, all right. So we've talked about some surprises, some things to be prepared for. What I want to do now is I want to bring up, there are a couple neighborhoods that I think they've come up recently a few times. And so I want to bring them up now, because in conversations that have come up, I think it's worth mentioning these neighborhoods now, because if you do find a house that comes up in this area, I would at least be prepared to, if it checks your boxes, to jump on it. Now, number one is going to be Dominion Meadows. Where is Dominion Meadows, and why do I care about it? Okay, so I'm going to show you where that is, and I'm going to share the screen. If I could just do this enough times. Let me answer AN on, or just AN. initials. Anyway, hi, Sam. Hi. What do you think about price and value of Spence Crossing community in Salem? Oh, good question. Are you talking about the actual new community or if you had a resale? I personally, okay, location wise, I'm a fan. Actually, generally speaking, I'm a fan, of the location because I just like being in the Princess Anne area. You're right next to Walmart. You're right next to Target. You're right next to all that stuff. Do I like the construction? Okay, it's fine. It's fine. I mean, you kind of get what you pay for. Personally, it's fine. I think you get a finished product, a new house. I'm a fan of new houses in some circumstances, but as far as the location itself goes, I am generally speaking a fan. Part of the reason is because there aren't too many new or construction houses in the Salem area now. Well, in the Virginia Beach area now, there are new construction areas like Princess Anne Meadows, which is nearby there. There are some places over in going towards the courthouse about 2-3 miles away, but there aren't too many. So if you want the condos, I'm more a fan of the single family area there as much as the condos, like the 2-bedroom condos. But if you got to do a condo, I get it. I personally prefer the single family houses. But again, hey, if you really want that spot, in the school district can make a difference. And so I would say if that is a factor, it's important, then I'd say that does intrigue me. I do think the Salem, generally speaking, the Salem area I'm a fan of. You can find yourself close to areas. That's the thing about Salem. If you go close to Salem, you'll find yourself in parts I'm not as big a fan of. But I mean, we don't live that far away from Salem and Spence Crossing ourselves. So I say, generally speaking, area wise, I'm a fan. I'd say part of it is too, as the houses that aren't new go back in the market again, you might find that, just be careful now as the market's shifting into the wintertime. It's November, December, January, the market is going to soften. And so I'd definitely be ready to make an offer that gives you the best value for that type of condo, like a 2-bedroom condo. Because I mean, if I'm going to a condo, I would want 3 bedrooms personally. But that's just because once you go into 2 bedrooms, you find that there's just less demand for 2 bedrooms, right? And that's kind of the thing. And so I'm always a fan of getting that extra bedroom because again, you're also going to be talking about the ability to access as many buyers as possible. You're going to have more options in 3 bedrooms as opposed to 2 bedrooms. But again, if you plan on staying in the house for a long time, it might not make as much of a difference. So it depends on what you're looking for. Anyway, so I hope that answers your question. So Dominion Meadows. Okay, I'm going to do my shared screen here. And so I'm always kind of looking for areas that have houses that are newer looking, that also aren't in flood zones. And so meaning Chesapeake has been a common discussion recently. And I've always been a fan of an area called Summer Park. And I'll go over, if you see zooming out, and I'm going to be doing a big video about Chesapeake here pretty soon, but zooming in, Summer Park's right here, right? And if you see my cursor, I like Summer Park a lot because of the types of houses that there are. Well, the problem is that if you look at I can even show you. Is this going to take too much time? Summer Park. Actually, it's called, what is it called? Not Park View. No. Well, it's going to be too complicated. All right. So this area needs flood insurance, almost all of it. And so you'll find that it's like, oh my gosh, I can buy a house in here for $575, 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, 1,700 square feet, whatever. Flood insurance is why it's a little bit cheaper. So I like the newer style houses. Let's drop you a pin in here so you can see what I'm talking about. These types of houses right here. Stephen Alexander Homes was the big builder in here. And this area was a bunch of nothing 20 years ago. Well, 15 years ago, these guys, Stephen Alexander, the Quicks, they started building in here, and it was, so you can see here, this was nothing, right? This is a great example of the before and after. Boom, boom. That's an awesome example. That's what this area turned into. Well, you see these ditches in here. So there's a lot of potential, like, flood issues can be a thing here. And so flood insurance. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find, oh yeah. Sorry, I was looking at the comments. So Ann, I thought it was overpriced. Get your point. Thank you. Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, I mean, it's a location thing. It all is location. And a lot of the areas that feel overpriced, to me, it's like, okay, part of the reason is because of where it is, so, and that's sometimes you can find cheaper versions of this in other parts of town. You can find, I mean, goodness, you can find some great condos 2-3 miles away for the same price, an extra 200-300 square feet. It's school district dependent too. And you know what I mean? So that's probably why it might come across like that, because it is a pretty good school district in demand. Good evening from Lakeland, Florida. Very cool. Awesome. Lakeland, Florida. Are you coming? Are you staying in the area? Do you love learning about the area here and you still live in Florida? That's cool. Anyway, what was I going back to that? Yeah. So you can see this is an example of an area that I like, but flood insurance. Okay. So I want to find a spot that doesn't need that, right? So I'm going to zoom out. One that's sneaky, that is, I'll give you reasons why it has some drawbacks, but why it's not, I think it's a good idea, is this Dominion Meadows area. So right here, you see Route 17 right here. And if I'm talking too fast, you can stop me saying, hey, you're talking too fast. The Veterans Bridge. This is a relatively new bridge with a toll. Okay. So here is Dominion Meadows right here. And drop a pin. The area was built in like 2000 and I think it's 2008, 9. I need to check to make sure I'm not getting that wrong. It may be a little bit older than that, but at that age range of houses. Okay, so you've got see those frogs? Remember those frogs I was talking to you about? See that again? A lot of those frogs. And no flood insurance as of now, right? Okay, so that's cool. And he's going to be like in the 550 range, 530, 575, in that range. Okay, you can apply closer to 60, those nicer, newer, all redone, 625. But that's pretty good for what this is. Okay, I like this a lot, and it's hard to find this type of house for the style of house in the price range. And there's another one I'm going to mention. That's another one I want to focus on, that is in Virginia Beach, that I think gets overlooked a lot too. But for the sake of conversation, I do like this neighborhood a lot. Okay, there's a drawback to it though. One of which is the fact that it's right next to Dominion Boulevard. It's right up against it. And so if you're on Monarch Reach, I'd say of all the things, you're going to be hearing it more so you're going to hear let me zoom out. There's the road right there. And so you've got the barrier there. But, there are some neighborhoods that I'm not as big a fan of in the corners of those neighborhoods because of this noise. Woodstock is one, Avalon Hills. I like the neighborhoods, but it's just, if you're right next to the road, it's super annoying. So if you come off of here, that's where I'm like a bit more of a fan of it, because you don't have to deal as much with the noise. But that's one thing to note. One thing I like about this neighborhood that's kind of sneaky is that it is on the other side. So the toll is right here. It's right here. There it is. Right. Well, the exit to Dominion is the last exit before the toll. So that, to me, because one of the biggest deals of being in Chesapeake is that as you come further south in Chesapeake, you're going to be having to deal with a toll or the bridge, another bridge, a drawbridge, Battlefield, Great Bridge, all these. So being on the side of the toll that doesn't require you to go to Virginia Beach and pay money is also helpful. And that's where you can be in this neighborhood and not have to pay the toll if you want to be on that side. Now, if you're going to be on the south side of Chesapeake, different story. But I do like the fact that you can kind of attract buyers that are looking for that northern side of the area and still can live in Dominion Meadows and not to pay the toll. So that's one. Another one, and anyone else have questions? Okay. Yeah. So let me go back here. Another one is going to be Woodbridge Point. Okay. Where is Woodbridge Point? Well, I'll show you if I can get my bearings. Okay. So Woodbridge Point is a similar type of house, style of house, a little bit older than what you find in Monarch and Dominion Meadows, but it's in Virginia Beach. And it's in, I believe it's the Tallwood School District. Almost positive it's Tallwood. But here is Woodbridge Point right here. Okay, so I'm going to drop a pin. I have clients that live in here and love it. So these are similar styles. And you notice here that part of what you hear me talk a lot about is I love the older houses, the older styles, like those brick ranches. I love that. 2-story. We live in a 60s house. But I also understand that there is a desire for newer style houses and contemporary style houses. And there's a mixture of, I want the older house or the older house vibe with the trees, but I also want the character of the neighborhood, but also the new style house. I get that. Well, as time goes, places like Woodbridge Point, the trees are going to grow up and it's going to feel more of that type of neighborhood. I'm in the wrong part of town. I was in the Charlestown Lakes. I'm sorry. But so my point is that Charlestown Lakes is becoming that. I'm sorry, that Woodbridge Point is becoming that. It doesn't feel as wide open as those new construction areas might be, but it's not also super wooded either, but it's getting there. So you're going to see these houses, these trees get bigger and just start forming that character that you might like in those older neighborhoods, but it has the newer style house. These are going to be also in the 550 to 650 range, or 525 to 625. Yeah, in that range. Similar to what you find in Dominion Meadows, but this is also in Virginia Beach. Now it's close to Lynn Haven Parkway. It's very close to a lot of different things. I like the accessibility to other parts of town and shopping, and even Kempsville and 64. It's not too far away from major roadways that can get you to the rest of the area. So I do like this area for that reason, if you're in that price range also. And I understand that not everybody's in this price range. Some people are in the 8 and 9. Some people are in the 350 to 450. I get it. But this is another type of area that I do like for the style of house that it is. And if you want something a little bit cheaper, like 450, 475, 500, but you want to be in a neighborhood that has more expensive houses in it, I would definitely consider Glenwood as that other type of house that has the trees are getting there, but it's going to still take some time to be like those older, mature neighborhoods. But it's like the houses are built in the 90s. So I'll drop a pin. Let's do Archdale Drive. You can see this. So it's that type of thing. A little bit smaller houses, 1,800, 2,000, 2,200 square feet and all that kind of stuff. So similar in types of maybe feel to Woodbridge Point, but still smaller houses and a little bit cheaper houses. So anyway, so now we're at 9:03. Okay. So I know, thanks guys. We're at 14 people watching. I love it. I love helping you guys. If you have any questions, let me know. You can drop them in the comments. You can, love to help you relocate. That's what I do. A majority of what I do is help people relocate to the area. And so I love just trying to inundate or integrate people into what it feels like to live here, right? I love it. And I grew up here. So if you have any questions about relocating here, then again, here's my email or my phone number first. This is my phone number. You can call me and you can text me and I will message you back ASAP. And here's my email address. Next email address. A lot of Sam saying Sal, hard to spell my name. And I may not have thought that through as much when I had done all my websites and emails, because I've got a lot of the repetitiveness of my name. It's just my name. So, hey, I guess hopefully people know or feel used to spelling my name at this point. Akhenaten, Ankhenaten. Forgive me if I got that wrong. Virginia Beach. That's where you're watching? Very cool. That's where I'm watching from, is Virginia Beach. So there we go. Sorry, wrong topic there. But anyway, so you can reach out at any point. I can talk more about in detail about the area, because again, there's just so much here. Zoom out. Look how big this area is. And I talk about places like Tawano, go down to Lightfoot, go down to James City County, York County, down through Poquoson, Norfolk, Virginia Beach, Chesapeake. I love the whole area. Suffolk. I was in Suffolk a lot today. So if you have any questions at all about the area, you want to relocate, but you don't really know where to start, or you want to create a plan. I love helping people create plans as far as where they are now and how to get here and how to transition as far as planning like a visit, a route, and get a route for you as far as specific spots to focus on. I'll do a lot of stuff like that to kind of help you get acclimated in that first visit. Those first visits are important to get that feeling of where the best spots are, and also to eliminate places. One of the best, most important things is to know where to eliminate. So we can go through all that. So if you have any questions, please let me know. And again, call, email, text at any point, and I'll do whatever I can to help you relocate to the area. And if you have any more questions now, you can also drop them in the comments here. But if not, I will see you on the next video. Thank you very, very much.